Yep, thanks everyone for joining us. Power Platform Community High Five. So this is the November event. What we do occasionally, some months we do bump it a week or so, just depending if we're traveling or busy. And that happened both with me and Sarah this time. We was very lucky enough to go to the Power Platform Community Conference as well. Some of us extended the trip, so it was good to just push this out slightly and see you all tonight. So yeah, thanks for joining us, everyone. Briefly mention the code of conduct. We use the Microsoft event code of conduct like some other events do as well. We just find it kind of just matches say everyone's going to respect each other. It's going to be a nice vibe, nice atmosphere. We know most of you already. We're all good friends anyway. But if anyone's got any issues during the sessions, just reach out to me or Sarah directly, and we'll take care of things if we need to. So tonight we've got a cracking lineup actually and a really good mix of things tonight. So first up, we're going to start off with unleashing potential, leading and growing a successful high performing practice. That's going to be by Dan Barber, and I was lucky enough to work with Dan at A&S previously as well, and I can certainly confirm that he really knows his stuff. So that's going to be an interesting one. Next up, we're going to have a new speaker slot. I know he's spoken already and name dropped me during that session with mentions of Marmite. Thank you, Markus. But that one's going to be from bland to brand, home screen makeover in Power Apps. And that'll be Markus Franz for the second session. And then finally, we're going to have designing for everyone, accessibility and inclusive experiences in Power Platform by the fantastic Heather Perriam, who is wonderful. And it's always good to catch up with Heather at the in-person events where possible as well. So with that said, we're ready for the first session. Dan, it's over to you. Please go ahead and share your screen and look forward to seeing what you've got.
All right, let's give this a bash. Let's see if we're sharing the right screen to start with. Right. Can we all see unleashing potential?
Yeah, looking good. Thank you.
Fantastic. Right. Okay. So I'm going to minimize you guys and I'm going to crack on. Right. So first off, thank you very much for turning up tonight. Wanted to start by just sort of introducing myself for those of you who don't know me. So been around the community for quite a while in various different guises, but more recently I've just set up, as you can probably tell by the outlandish branding everywhere I can possibly put it, is I've just started a new fractional company called Strathos, so Strategic Advisory and Leadership Consulting. So this is around really sort of delivering my passion to more people, which is, you know, building practices, building teams that are high performing, successful, happy, and everyone wants to work there. So, you know, that's kind of where I get my vibes from. So I do a lot of work around the community as well, as you can see from here. And yeah, I feel like I'm a bit of a former everything because, you know, project management, practice management, BA, tester, SA, developer, you know, you just at some point in your career you seem to wear all the hats. So I feel I've had a bit of a taste on most things now. So that's enough about me. I did try to get the branding on all of the slides, so this was the only one where my wonderful family eclipsed it, but I thought they deserved that, so that's fine. So before I kick off, I wanted to address the elephant in the room, because I was very conscious when I put this with the session together that it says practice lead or practice improvement. So realistically, this is about teams. You know, I come from a business applications, Power Platform, digital practice background, so it's very pertinent. Some of my experience is very pertinent to that. But realistically, this is not for any particular level, and it's not for any particular technology partners. You know, this can be applied to teams in any business, in any organization, and it's not just about the people who lead those teams. It's about the individuals as well. Okay, so I'm going to talk about businesses and teams. You know, so when I'm talking about, if I use the word practice, know that that's interchangeable between business or team that you're operating in. And then when I talk about with the individuals, what I want you to think about, if you're an individual on the call, then you work in a team. What's your role in that team? What do you think your manager does? What do you think your leaders do? And what opportunities are there? Some of the things that I'll cover today, I'm hoping that you can take these away and actually apply these to things like advancement, becoming more high performance, thinking strategically, gaining more influence, those kind of things. Because if you know how the team operates that you operate in, then you better more inclined and more able to capitalize on the opportunity that you have there. Okay, so I'm going to try an experiment here and see how it works with virtual. But just want to try and get a quick understanding of who we got in the audience. So we got 31 people on the call. Can we have a quick raise of the hands if you are in a management position of any kind? So what have we got there? I think we got up to about 8. Is that 10? Okay. Oh, going up as well. 12. Excellent. That's more than I expected. So that's really, really powerful. So I'm going to take the assumption that the others are individuals. So you can lower your hands now. And final. That actually went much better than I thought it was going to. And then from a perspective of who's, let's have businesses. So who's client side? If you can put your hand up if you work for a client business or a business that's not a Microsoft partner. Okay, 2, 4, 5, okay, 6. Cool. 7. Okay, so there's a couple there that they're moving up. So, let's call it okay, cool. So what I'm trying to get at there really is that, as I said, this content is applicable to both the individuals, but also any team that you're operating in. So my ask for you guys when I'm going through this content is please wear a couple of different lenses there. So think if you are the manager, so there was 15 or so of you on the call as managers. So think of it, it's easy for you because you live it and breathe it every day as a manager or leader within a team. Okay, but also put on the hat of the individual in the team, you as an individual in that team. Okay, and then if you're the flip side of that, if you're an individual, think about, what is your manager going through, what are your leaders going through in order to deliver what they're going through, the growth strategy that they're going through. So that's some of the admin. So in terms of structuring this, I have a good friend, Jason Earnshaw, who loves his P's. Keith will know this. So I decided to take a leaf out of his book, and I've got the 3 P's for you. So this will just make him roll in his grave. So I'm going to talk about, to give it a bit of structure, I'm going to talk about the purpose. Okay, this is very much about, why is it important to understand what you're doing, the clarity around what you're doing, and what you need to achieve it. Then I'm going to talk about probably one of the most important things, people. The thing is, everyone says people are the most important thing. They are the foundation. They pay a lot of credit. But what do we actually do to make sure that those people feel like they're important, feel like they are the linchpins for an organization, and bring that to a reality? And then finally, we're going to be talking about the processes that we can undertake to operate a really fast-growing, fast-moving practice. Okay, so please do break in. Got too many screens on the go, so won't be able to keep an eye on the chat. But if you've got any particular questions, please do just come off mute and shout out the question, and hopefully I'll be able to help you. So, moving into the first one, so purpose. So when I talk about clarity here, when I'm talking about purpose, is for me, when I'm structuring a team, when I'm thinking about a team or an organization or a business, what I see quite commonly is that we're actually going to struggle to get people on board and to follow a particular direction if you don't have clarity on where you're going. Clarity is that kind of North Star that you need. Okay, if you're operating in particular silos, I'm sure many people are actually operating in that kind of environment. You don't have clarity on what the business is doing, that why they're doing it, that how they're doing it, the what they're doing it. What are those operational goals? Right, trickling down to team goals, individual. If they're all disjointed and no one's really quite sure what people are doing, then you're going to find growth really, really difficult, because you're going to get a silo that operates and goes off in that direction, then another one that goes off in that direction, and then you'll try and pull them together, and you're losing a lot of momentum and efficiency in that. So for me, when I talk about purpose and making sure that your purpose and your clarity is there, it's making sure in everything that you do, you're tying it back. So your company will have a mission. It's probably got values. It should have some organizational operational goals for the year ahead. Hopefully most of the organizations you're working with now already have their 2026 goals set out, planned out, and hopefully you're being educated on those so you can actually move forward with clarity into 2026. Without it, you've got to rudderless ship, and everyone does their own agenda that they think is positive and they think is going to take them to the right direction, but not necessarily always does. Or you can also find duplication there as well. Okay, so the next one that we're going to go through is communications. Okay, 20 years in the game, and I think Keith and other people on this call have worked for me. I've never got it right, never got communications right. I'm not sure there is a perfect, absolute diehard. Yep, you communicate like this, and you're gonna make peace with everyone. Everyone's gonna be happy. But what I say to you guys is, communication is all about trying. It's all about trying to make sure that you are trying different mediums, different detail levels, getting feedback from people to understand what's working. Is emails the channel, Teams, meetings, documents, different things for different people. You're never ever going to please everyone, I found, because I will pivot and I will change and try different approaches, but you're trying to find that sort of that happy medium where you're addressing most of the audience. Okay, and maybe you have tailored approaches for certain individuals or certain groups that take in information differently. But don't try to aim for perfection with communications would be my advice here, because it is nigh on impossible to make sure you communicate everything that every single individual, because of their personalities and their own needs, will tick that box. Okay. The second thing around communication is, and I know this is a problem in most organizations, so it's about limiting rather than eradicating. It's things like the rumor mill, the grapevine. Okay, it will happen within your organizations if it's not already happening. Okay, so your job as a leader, okay, and this is a leader thing as opposed to an individual, because it's about influence and control of that information, is what I see time and time again is weak excuses for withholding information within organizations. Sometimes it's organizations keeping information for no real governed reason. No, there's nothing highly sensitive there. It's just, we just don't do that. Or, yeah, we're not ready to communicate that out. The more they procrastinate on how to deliver that message has already gone out. Okay, so it's about, you going to bat for your team and making sure that if there is sensitivity around information, fair play, it needs to come out in the right way. But sometimes is it really that sensitive? Is the information there something that we need to procrastinate on, or do we get in front of it and make sure we pay the respect to our teams that they deserve, that X is leaving, or so and so is going to happen in the next 2 weeks? Sometimes that information is better out rather than it coming through the rumor mill or the grapevine. So that's a message to the leaders and the managers within the call to make sure that you weed out those weak excuses. There will be legitimate ones, absolutely, but weed out the weak excuses and push back hard on those would be my advice here. And then finally, communications is all about the individuals. Okay, sometimes you pick up some information and it might not immediately feel important to you as a leader or a manager, but you're not receiving that information as a leader or a manager. You're receiving that information as the accountable party for your team, your people. Okay, so it's on you. You're accountable for looking at that piece of information and understanding how it's going to affect your particular team. There is no better person established or around that can understand how that piece of information is going to affect your team. HR, C-suite, whatever, higher management aren't always going to understand what the ramifications are going to be at the lower levels for the team members within your team. So you need to take that on and make sure that they understand, and you communicate upwards, but also you make sure you take that information empathize with how it's going to affect your team to deliver the message in the right way. Those are my kind of things. So this is all about, making sure you want respect from your team. They're your people. You want them to look up to you and feel that, yes, this person is accountable. They're looking after me. Okay. Make sure that actually you deserve that by respect by doing some of these actions. Next one is commitment. Now I'm going to talk about this in a couple of different scales here. So I'm going to talk about from a business perspective, and this will be sometimes the more controversial part, but I've seen this on both sides. I've been the person who's been the consultant, the BA right at the bottom of the tree, and I've been someone in a senior, more influential position. So and over the years I've got to understand the different perspectives there. So at the end of the day, your team is generally part of a bigger whole. We all know that. We all understand that. Okay. And sometimes there are going to be decisions and consequences of things that don't go your particular way. They don't look after your team in the best way. They maybe look after another team or another direction or another product or another service, something like that. You as a leader here, I'm talking to the leaders in the group. This is about, making sure that when those come up, fight for your corner, fight for your team. Make sure you get that justification. If it's not siding with your team, maybe you're not getting the budgeting for training or to go to an event or, to increase your headcount, one of a million different things, make sure you fight for your corner and fight for your team. But if it doesn't go your way, make sure you get the justification for your team. But most importantly, you stand by that final decision. If you've made your case, and you've got to that point, okay, then you have to stand behind the business, okay? And I know sometimes that is a hard nut to swallow or nut to crack, should I say, okay? And this is probably a conversation I could unpack for hours. But what you'll see is if you get to a position where you don't get your way, okay, and maybe you decide that you're going to go a different way and you're going to side with your team, short term, great. You make a hero of yourself, of your team, because you stood up to the man kind of thing, in terms of saying, well, that wasn't on. But what that's actually going to do over time is that's going to erode both the confidence between your team members in the business and in yourself as you go forward, if that keeps happening. Because at the end of the day, as I said at the beginning, you are part of a larger team, a larger organization with goals and objectives and metrics that are, sometimes out of your comprehension or out of your control. Okay. You've got to trust that the business you're operating in is making the decisions for the right thing. And if you don't believe that, you as a leader or you as an individual, then that's something for you to look at internally and decide, right, what should I do in this situation? Okay. So final points on this, fight for your say, fight for your team. If unsuccessful, then fight for justification and the support that needs to go with the messaging. The teams, the higher ups, the HR departments and things like that should just be able to support you in making sure that you can deliver that commitment to your team, but also the business itself. And that's sometimes a hard one to swallow. So the second one is you're a team. So we're talking to the individuals in the crowd. You're a team. Stand together, support each other. I like to think, I think someone else has used the phrase like you're a work family. You spend a lot of time together. Okay. So remember that you're part of a team. You're not a bunch of individual contributors. You're a team. You hopefully love working with each other. You learn from each other. You support each other. Always remember that, commit to each other, not just to yourself, to a project, to a particular team. You're committing to everyone around you. As a leader, when you're thinking about that, the stuff I've talked about clarity, make sure your team have got clarity. They can only be a team, an effective team, if they know exactly where they're going. What their goals and objectives are, where they're going. So make sure that you're looking after each of the individuals. They've got their goals. You own your actions. You take accountability for what your team are asking you to do. There's a book I read recently called The $1 Trillion Coach, which is a fantastic read if there are any readers in the crowd. There was a line in it that says that your title makes you a manager, your people make you a leader, which I think is an absolutely, for me, that's a fantastic line. We got was there a hand up I saw there? feel free
It was
to
on
jump in.
accident, sorry.
Oh, no worries, no worries. Do feel free to jump in. Always happy for questions. Okay, so so when you're that leader, be someone to learn from, someone to respect, someone who cares, someone who can make decisions. It's really, really important for you as a leader to take accountability and say, I'm going to make that decision. I'm going to take that away from you and make sure I can unblock you and get you going. And most of all, be accountable. And lastly, as a leader, when we're talking about tech, I've been off the tools for a long time as the guys have worked with me for a while, but I keep my certs up to date. I keep my knowledge up to date, but it gets broader. Okay, it gets broader and shallower. Won't be afraid to mention that. But now my learning is about other things. It's tech, but it's also tech plus psychology and management, and leadership and motivation, and business and financial savvy. The list goes on. You again as a leader, you have an accountability to carry on leading and making sure that, again, you are there for your team in all manner of things, not just the technology. So the next one is around clear offerings. So this is a short and sweet one, and it should be really obvious. But I'm saddened to say I've worked at more than one organization that don't have those clear offerings. Okay, and I'm not saying that you're going to go for the perfect scenario where everything is absolutely mint, everything is planned out to the T. But making sure that sales, marketing, delivery, support, you're all operating within the same ballpark when it comes to the products and services that you're offering. It's really, really important. I mean, I lost count the amount of times they said, they sold what? Or we do agile, right? Or how are we supposed to deliver this? All these kind of phrases are like sort of red alerts going, uh-oh, right, okay, well, maybe we don't have consensus on exactly what we're doing and how we're going to be delivering. So a real, for unblocking growth and making sure you're not starting on the back foot with projects or selling something that's not quite what the customer envisaged, then it's making sure that you can unblock those. That is a real key to growth, is making sure everyone's on the same page with the offerings. And then finally, and again, Jason's going to be proud here because I've moved from the 3 Ps to the 5 Cs. I'm not quite sure how I've done that, but it's happened. He'll be proud. But when I talk about commercials here, it's a bit that no one really likes to talk about. No one likes budgets and forecasts and metrics. They're not the most sexy of things. But I have to say, my experience, I've been in organizations which don't track any metrics, don't have the budgets or the forecasts, and for a time it works, because they've built up a momentum and they've got business and everything's going fine, but then the cracks start to form. Okay, and this is when I'm talking about building a growing practice. You have different strategies based upon what size you are, what maturity level you are. Okay, but even if you're starting up small, start with the basics of budget, forecast, and metrics would be my advice. Because if you don't know what your target is you're trying to achieve, you don't have the metrics in place to understand actually, where am I towards that, and you don't have a forecast to say, am I actually going to meet that budget by the end of the year? They are important things, because let's face it, when you take away all the numbers and everything, this is what pays for your Christmas parties, your training, your slush fund for socials and stuff like that, the ability to hire new talented people, the ability to promote and give pay rises to everyone. At the end of the day, it's a business. It's got to make money, and the more money it makes, then the more benefits and growth that you are going to achieve, and everyone benefits in that scenario. Okay, so keeping our eye on the numbers, as boring as it might sound, you just, without doing it, you're sailing in the fog. Okay, and you're not going to achieve that growth that you really want. Okay, so I'm going to pause for a sip of water there. Anything from the 5 Cs? Rachel?
Oh yeah, I just wanted to comment. I really like the clarity and commitment. I'm big on vision and having a vision, because if you don't have a vision or set the vision, then you'll end up anywhere. So I really like that you brought that point out.
Oh, thanks, Rachel. Appreciate it. Thanks. Okay. So there's plenty of time for questions all the way through, and hopefully, if I don't waffle too much, there'll be some more time at the end as well. So I'm going to bring on to people now. Okay, and again, trying to distill practice management, team management down to sort of 40-minute presentation is a tough job, as I found this week. So I'm breezing through it, but hopefully there's some points here that resonate. So start with a no-brainer: culture. Okay, that one word sounds so freaking simple. Culture. Yeah, build a culture. The trouble is there's no shortcut to building a culture, and what's really double-edged sword is you can build a positive or a negative culture because of all the culmination of all the things that you do. Okay, so you can do some great stuff, but if you do more negative stuff, more bad stuff than you do good stuff, guess what? You've got a negative culture, not a positive culture. Okay, so it's about the shared beliefs, the values, the behaviors. So when you're thinking about your team that you've got, think about it like a project. An MVP. Who should your team be? What's the characteristics? What the behaviors that you expect your team? And making sure that you've got a diverse representation when you're looking at that culture from each of the people within your team. Not everyone. If you've got a team of 100, but like in all good statisticians, a representative sample. That was hard to say. So think about that. What I've used in the past, which is a technique that may or may not work for you, is a charter. Building a charter for your team that represents these are our non-negotiables. This is who we should be. And you've got a clear baseline then for anyone joining your team and anyone in your team saying, this is our culture. These are our shared beliefs and values and behaviors that we expect from anyone. That's your MVP. Okay, so this is something that you will build. It's an evolving thing, the culture, but keep an eye on that positive negative slant, making sure you're on the right side of it. I just realized I'm a real fan of my C's. I really need to get a dictionary and move past the first three letters. So coaching and mentoring, I think you probably saw from my opening gambit, I'm big into coaching and mentoring. I do a lot of my on my own time, and I've just launched a coaching service through Strathos. It is paramount for me, coaching and mentoring, and they are two different things, but it's not just down to the leader. Coaching and mentoring is part of your culture. Weave it into everything you do. Yes, as a leader, you will be doing some coaching and mentoring, but there's no reason to say that individual team members can't coach and mentor each other if they know and are empowered to do that. Sometimes they just operate in this silo of, I'm in a strict hierarchical relationship and I couldn't possibly go and speak to Jennifer over there because she's got some fantastic experience in managing people and I'm new to it. Use that network, but cultivate that culture within your team. That's a mouthful. That means that you can actually empower people and unlock people and let them know that's okay to do. Sometimes it's as simple as that. Sometimes people just don't know that they are allowed to go and have a conversation with someone and build a relationship in that way. Okay. Hey, we finally got off C, but we've gone back 2 letters. So attraction and recruitment. So, for me, this is again a really important thing. Okay. Goes back to clarity. To do this, to attract the right talent, and to recruit the right people, you need clarity and a great story. It's about, we're in a very, very competitive marketplace. I'm sure Sarah would agree. When you've got a conversation with a candidate to join your organization, you're more on the sell side than they are. You're the one who wants the talent, wants the great people to be joining your team and not someone else's team. So remember, I'm fond of saying, as some of the guys that I've worked with will know, it's as much about them wanting you as it is about you wanting them. So make sure when you're doing that attraction recruitment thing is making sure you're a good fit. I've used sort of, what do they call it? Competency-based interview stages, but I've always had a cultural basis as well, a cultural stage where the individuals get to meet some of the other teams and things like that, which means that, you know, are they going to fit in with our MVP, our shared beliefs, our shared values? You know, they might be absolutely magic, but, you know, they might not be able to deal with customers, let's say. You know, they might not have that ability to converse with customers, and that might be something that is contravening your culture. Okay, so it's, you know, and it goes both ways. You know, if you're an individual and you've got certain prerequisites for the organization that you actually want to join, then, you know, stick to those. Make sure that your cultural beliefs are engendered by the organization that you're thinking about joining as well. Okay, so that's my advice on the attraction and recruitment. You know, make sure you understand who you're joining, because, or who you're recruiting, or who you're joining, because on both fronts, you know, this is a big commitment of your life. Okay, this is, you know, probably in our tech industry, okay, what is it, you know, average about 2-ish years. Someone correct me if I'm wrong there, but, you know, you're hopefully we're going in the right direction and that's growing, you know. But in a 40-year career, it's what, 5% of your career, you know. That might not seem much, but, you know, that's 2 years is a long amount of time. You want to make sure you're making the right decision on both sides. Okay, so be prepared when you go through to the interview. Don't take it with a pinch of salt and just go in unprepared on either side. Make sure you're doing it, giving it the respect it deserves, because, again, when I talk about, I'll talk about retention in a second, and you'll see why that's probably even more important. So again, on people onboarding, this is something that I see in most organizations not done very well, which is really sad considering how important it is. You know, I've joined companies where I've literally been given a laptop, and sometimes not even a laptop, sat down at a desk, and that's my induction done. You know, that's the worst side of it. Okay, and there's obviously a sliding scale of how successful they are, but, you know, think about it. The first impression, the onboarding sets the tone, it sets the bar. If it's a low bar, it's really hard to get that bar up again, you know. So really, you can, with a bit of preparation and making sure the fact that this person has come in and committed 2 years of their lives plus to your organizations, make sure you do some prep, earn that respect of them making that decision to join your company and not one of the 50 other applications that they probably had on the table, and making sure that they get a good onboarding into the organization. But again, looking at those two lenses, manager, leader, and the individuals, okay, it's not all on the leader. You know, it's not all on the single manager in order to make sure that each person who joins that organization has a great experience. Every single person can put into that experience, whether it's turning up on the day, going out for lunch with them, contributing to the onboarding materials, looking at how their onboarding wasn't so good or missing something, and feeding back into the process. So many different ways there, but we all own it. Okay, if you want to grow as a team, we all need to pull our weight, put something back into ourselves. Then on to retention. Now, I said I'd come back to this. You know, we talk about good people are hard to find, great people you're fortunate to find, and, you know, as the name suggests, the unicorns out there. There are some who just seem to know everything and are just amazing. You know, are incredibly rare. But, you know, think about your team. Who have you got in your team right now? You'd be devastated and traumatized if they left. You know, if you were going to lose them. Honestly ask yourself, am I doing enough to make sure that those people are looked after? You know, and that, you know, that you are protecting your team to make sure you're going to grow in the way you want to grow. Okay, what is it you can be doing more? So I looked up some stats, you know, and, you know, obviously used a bit of AI. So don't take these stats, but did a fair bit of research and digging around, and it seems to be that the cost of losing someone in our kind of technical industry, the cost of losing someone and replacing them will probably be in the region of 75% plus of that person's salary. That is mind-blowing. You know, that is a lot. Okay, but it's not just about the money. I don't want to be focused on the fact it's about the money, but, you know, that is, when you're talking about growth as a leader, that's a massive blow to your growth. Okay, so again, when I talk when I sort of talk about numbers, not everyone's focused on the numbers, but you do have to have some focus on it. Okay, so when you're looking at retention, there's obviously many factors. Okay, and that's why leading a team, managing a team, is a full-time and incredibly important job. There is a lot to do, and sometimes I think when I was less mature, I don't think I appreciated how much that goes into managing a team and leading a team. There is a lot that gets done behind the scenes. Okay, but we understand that some of these individual things we need to look at. Are they being challenged? Do they have growth potential? Pay is an obvious one. Benefits. Is there good diversity? Work-life balance? Learning, innovation, culture? You can go on and on and on. There are so many. Okay, I have approach for all of these different things, but not something I can do in 40 minutes. So if you want some more advice, then please do tap me up there. But again, retention is such an important thing. The longer you can keep a team together, the more amazing they are, because everyone learns together, everyone grows, and they just get more and more and more awesome the longer they work and live together. I have a big thing about this. Again, people who work with me know about this. There's a stigma around one-to-ones and one-to-ones and annual reviews and things like that it just becomes a tick box exercise. My message here is, please change that culture. Okay, it is really incredibly important that one-to-ones and feedback is rooted and intertwined within your day-to-day culture. People have got to be able to take feedback. They've got to be able to give feedback. There are plenty of courses about how to give and receive feedback constructively. But they're really important. So on both sides, it's the preparation for it. I've been to one-to-ones where the person I'm meeting hasn't done any prep for it. On occasion, I've been the one who hasn't done the prep for it on one-to-ones. Guess what? That has not been a valuable one-to-one. They're not respecting my time. I'm not respecting their time. So please work on that culture around this, because that's how people grow, when they get true feedback that really moves the needle. So that is something that I really want to emphasize. Weave it into your daily operations. D&I. Okay, this was my last organization. They were fantastic with this. That it is literally without D&I, you're literally, as I've put in my notes here, you're a few sandwiches short of a picnic. What I'm trying to say there is, without diversity and inclusion, you are missing out on so many amazing people, so many amazing ideas, viewpoints, challenges, innovation. You cannot get that by just having a cookie cutter of a consultant within your team. You just can't do it. So avoid that cookie cutter approach to management. Embrace the diversity and inclusion. Make sure you're getting a wide spread of people, because you will thank me for it. You cannot grow and be epic without these amazing people. And then finally, save the best till last. Empowerment. I say on here, I would scream this from the rooftops to every business, every person who would listen. Okay, we are, how can I put this? We're all busy. We're all stretched. We all want to be challenged, and we're all so devastatingly afraid of failure. Okay, and we find it hard to trust people, because if I empower something to someone, I'm saying, I trust you to do this. Please go and do that. Okay. With empowerment, you've got to make sure that there is a reciprocal relationship there for trust and respect. Okay, you've got to trust people. You need to allow them to take charge, allow them to fail, and allow them to learn, and make sure that that's a reciprocal arrangement where you're making sure they learn from their mistakes, but not ridiculed for making those mistakes. They've got to grow. They've got to face these challenges, and you'll find that the more we'll succeed than we'll fail. And that means you get more time to grow and do amazing things, and they get to grow and do amazing things as well. But if you hoard it to yourself because you're afraid that one little thing will fail, then you will stagnate your growth. So empowerment, absolutely critical. Okay. Vlad, we've got a question there.
Yeah. Nice to see you, Dan. It's always a pleasure to see you, man. And it's a great session so far. What I want to ask, do you think we have anything unique in our ecosystem, about performance management, and about having difficult conversation. I think talking about people, we need to a little bit highlight the fact that our industry now has a lot of redundancy going on. So what do you think from that perspective? So just, I'm going to bring maybe a dark shadow
So
here, but I'm curious.
in terms of framework for performance management.
Yeah. Do you think we have anything unique in this angle, where our ecosystem, Dynamics Microsoft, has something unique for that?
I wouldn't. I'm trying to figure out whether I'm answering your question right, but I think in terms of does our ecosystem have anything unique for performance management? I think not specifically. I would think it's probably around each individual organization ensuring and understanding and respecting the fact that everyone is an individual. You know, I talked about cookie cutters previously. You know, a lot of companies have a standard performance metric system that doesn't fit everyone. You know, and it's about making sure that you do treat everyone as individuals and their particular needs and how they maybe affect those traditional metrics. You know, you make if everyone's looking for a balance across the pitch, you might not get that, okay, but you might get outperforming here and lower performing here, but you can balance those out because you complement your team with a diverse range of people that maybe you have the mirrored opposite of that, and you can complement those. But you as a leader, that's you making the jigsaw, making the puzzle right, you know, and that's why it's a tough job, because it's really hard to put all those moving pieces together and make sure you get the great team that runs well. Does that kind of answer your question? Yeah, cool. Thanks, Blair. Okay, conscious on time, so I'm not going to loiter too much on the process piece because we've got two other fantastic speakers to go to. So when I talk about processes, okay, got 99 versions, but a standard ain't one. Okay, I hear this time and time again, particularly with things like methodologies. Okay, you know, we've got 16 versions of the waterfall process or the agile process or the lean Six Sigma process or whatever it is you're actually using. Okay, so when you've got people going, hey, just join the team, so how are we running this one? You know, that's a really good clue that you've probably not got your house in order, and there's something that needs to be addressed. Because guess what? If you don't have something as repeatable, it's not scalable. If it's not scalable, you're not going to grow as efficiently as you want to. So it's a really, really simple one. It's a no-brainer, and it's probably one that everyone knows. But do we always do it? Probably not. So maybe one for the to-do list. The next one, I kind of adapted the Marines. I think it's the US Marines slogan. Adapt and overcome. I think there's one word before that eludes me right now, but it didn't fit with what I was saying, so I scrubbed it. But what I'm talking about here is, you know, when you're working for an organization and we keep seeing the same mistakes happening all the time, you know, it can be disheartening, demoralizing. So it's really about making sure that when you're thinking about continuous improvement, again, it's one of those things like culture that you weave into that culture. CI, continuous improvement, should be part of your nature. You do a project, you do a wash up, and you feed back those things. You do a deal, it goes into project, you miss some things, you feed it back. Okay, we all know that stuff gets missed out of various different cycles. It's making sure you've got a mechanism that means you can collect those things and feed them back in. We all know everyone has white space at times on projects in organizations. You know, I've used CI lists in the past where people on a white space, they've got something to do. No one wants to sit on their bum just learning Microsoft Learn for 3 weeks. You know, that's terrible. But if they've got some genuine value they can add back into the business, put their influence, their stamp on things, picking up these CI tickets and making a change so that we continuously improve, that is unlocking growth. Okay, so don't forget about that. Innovation and creativity, you know, make sure that people can experiment, take calculated risks, not any risk, just some calculated risks, break new ground with ideas. You know, if you stagnate as an organization, then you'll lose customers, you'll lose your people, and you'll lose your growth. Okay, so just because you want to be at 100% utilization all the time, all that's getting you is short-term revenue gains. that's not going to help you longer term. That's going to mean that actually when that big project that you'd landed times out, then guess what? You've got a load of people who are 6 months, 12 months behind the game because you've not allowed people to innovate and develop. And this is an operations point of view, is remember, you're not a team in isolation. Okay, it's really important when you think about this, the fact that you've got, well, particularly when you're in a professional services organization, but even if you're as a business, you still have a customer as a business. How do you make sure that requirements come properly over from the business to the individuals doing the work to the individuals supporting the work? How do you make sure that those three independent teams that have different agendas, let's not beat around the bush, they have different agendas, how do you make sure there's a balance there between them? Okay, so sorry, my time is done, which means I'm out of time, so apologies, Keith and Sarah. I'll try and wrap up. So yeah, just making sure that those changeover points, so in the practice world, it's, you know, pre-sales to delivery to support, you know, making sure you've got continuous improvement between the teams, approval gates, project kickoffs, handovers, you know, that kind of thing, project debriefs. And then finally in this section is, I see this a lot, we focus very much on methodology. Okay, do we have the right methodology? Do we you know, hone our methodology? But there's a million processes that operate any business, any professional services organization. Don't forget the others, you know, all simple things like annual leave, white space, resource booking, timesheets. Yeah, I said it. You know, if we can eliminate waste in these things, if we can make them smooth experiences, I mean, not many people have had a smooth timesheeting experience, I'm pretty sure, on this call. What can you do? Some feedback there. You know, I'm sure no one's had a smooth experience with timesheeting. What can you automate? You know, how can AI help? Making sure that you are capitalizing on some of those opportunities and making sure those processes that everyone's involved in, day out, don't chip away at people's soul. So, going to leave you very quickly with this, and then I'll get off the stage because the other guys deserve the time. So, what I'm going to leave you with. So you can't tell a good story if you don't know the book. This is clarity, okay? Making sure that everyone knows why they're here. You know, do you have a good story to tell? That story is used to recruit people. It's used to get customers. It's used to tell your friends and who you're working with. If you can't tell people what you're doing, then, you know, that's not a good place to be. Second place is the community aspect, you know, that culture that I was talking about. It needs to be a mutual trust, respect, and you've got to be dependable. You've got to be accountable. So build that safe, strong community within your teams where you support each other and your goals. We talked just there about stagnation killing teams, you know, so when you're talking about that feedback, the development, making sure that each individual has somewhere to grow, you know, what contingency plans have you got where they can succeed other people? How can they move through the various rungs on the ladder? How can they get engaged in a diverse range of projects to keep them challenged, to keep them engaged? I've told you, don't operate in the dark without budgets, targets, forecasts, and metrics. You know, they shouldn't eclipse everything. Numbers aren't everything. You know, again, you know, I'm an advocate for this, but you've got to respect the numbers. You know, they do drive where we want to get to, and if we get to where we want to get to, everyone wins because everyone gets to do what they want to do. You know. Don't rely on people, talented individuals that have got everything in their head. You know, if a how is in someone's head, you can't scale effectively, you can't scale quickly. So making sure that on your to-do list is making sure those few talented people who are running all your major projects because you can trust them just to go off and do it. That's great short term, but when you start scaling out and growing, that's when the wheels are going to start to come off. And the final piece is your success comes from the individuals in your team, not just one leader. One leader can make a difference, but so can all the individuals in it. Okay, so put it all together and you'll achieve more, hopefully without the burnout and without the loneliness. Okay, That's me. Apologies for running over a little bit to Keith and Sarah. But if you've got any more questions, maybe we've got some time at the end. There's Strathos, my organization, and there's me. Please feel free to follow and connect. And thank you very much for your time.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you, Dan. Lots of love in the chat. A very, very good session. Learning so much. So thank you so much for that. Absolutely brilliant. As Dan mentioned there, if anyone's got any questions, do grab those QR codes right now. Please do get in touch with him. He really knows his stuff, and I can say that firsthand, having worked with Dan as well at the previous organization. So please do that. And thanks, Dan, for being mindful of the time. We're kind of not too far over, so that's really good time for us to bring up our next speaker. Now, it is a new speaker slot, but that's going to do him a disservice because I've seen Markus Franz present once before on the Microsoft community call with hundreds of people in attendance. It was a great session. He very kindly, I think, gave me a name check in a way, but it was an absolutely brilliant session. So Markus, over to you. Best of luck. Feel free to share the screen and go ahead.
Yes, I will. Thanks for heading over. Do you see my screen okay?
Yeah, looking good.
That's great. First of all, I want to say thanks to Dan for a great presentation and great tips and tricks on how to navigate through all of this and what to be, to keep in mind. And thanks to Keith and Sarah for the invitation today. I'm really looking forward to this. So, Keith already mentioned my topic kind of, so it's from blend to brand, home screen makeover in Power Apps. First of all, I see a few familiar faces here, which I'm very happy about, but it's also great to see lots of new ones. So just for you, if you don't know me, a quick introduction about myself. Like already mentioned, my name is Markus. Right now I'm working as a modern workplace solution architect at an manufacturing company here in Austria. I'm born and raised in Vienna, and I had the pleasure to meet a few of you at EPPC this year in Vienna, which I really enjoyed, and hopefully meeting some of you at ESPC in Dublin at the beginning of December. I was awarded Microsoft Business Applications MVP it's 2 months ago already, so I'm not really the newest in class right now, so I'm really happy about this as well. For the category of Power Apps, I just put a few things here just to give you a feeling what I do in the community. I also run a user group where we had the honor of having Keith as our very first speaker. We are mainly online as well, but we are more focused on the DACH region, so German-speaking people. But we are also having English sessions. So maybe we see 1 or 2 of you in the next few calls. So we really also work hard on this. So yeah, just a few more things. I do GitHub PNP repositories as well, as you can see from the badges at the bottom. And just my heaviest contribution towards the community is answering questions in the community forums. And I'm short of kind of 41K verified answers there. My goal was to get them by the end of the year. Still a few to grab, and I'm not sure if I will be there at the end of the year, but still really enjoy time spending there. So that was all about the slides. I just have one at the end. I wanted to show, you can see the QR code, so everybody who is not already connected with me, just scan and hit me a request on LinkedIn. If you have questions, just let me know and we can discuss there as well. So let's do a bit of a demo, right? So I prepared a few things and I do it the same way Dan did it. So I ask you a question and everybody who sees him or herself in my question, just please raise your hand. I opened the settings here so that you cannot see my very beautiful screen. So who of you did start like this? So if you are shy, I raise my hand because that was my beginning with Power Apps, basically. Oh, great. We have a few hands up, so 12 people at least. So for all of you, I hope you are not still there, but if you are, I will show you a way how to make it better. So today I decided to do a home screen from a mobile app kind of, but I will show you the exact same thing on a big screen as well for an app I built for myself kind of. And I will show you that it is also possible to make it responsive. But yeah, let's start from scratch, right? So I just need to open my other Word document where I prepared a few things that I can copy paste so that you are not really annoyed by my typing there. So I just inserted a different background for my screen, and I will just put over the logo right here. So this is a fictive toy store kind of. So that's the logo of the company. And I say I want to do it round for everybody not aware of it. So if you type in the same border radius like the size, you will get a circle there. So let's go back to the screen. We will insert a gallery here and drag it to the bottom, just make it even a little bit bigger. We can adjust the size later as well. So we have a few options to pick for the layout. For this demo, I will just grab the title, subtitle, and overlay because I think that it is the best for this use case. I just increase the template padding a bit so that the space between the pictures that we will insert in a minute is just a bit bigger, so it is better visible there. So we do not connect to any external data source, so we will just simply put together our own table with our own records. So the square brackets is the table and the curly braces are the records, just if anybody is not aware of it. So, and then we will just type in the properties we want to have in the gallery. So let's start by title. Just typing test right here. Then we will have the image property. And I prepared a few things. I just need to, let me just quickly check so that I'm keeping the order here. So let's put it, yeah, correctly from the beginning. So, and then we will have the screen. I prepared the other screens already. I did not really, yeah, but I will show you. So in my point of view, this layout or this home screen works the best for a mobile app if you have 4. Let me quickly check. It's missing. Yeah, so now we should be fine. We just inserted the 4 items in a gallery, and then I will just exchange the things we want to see here. I'm just checking later. So then we have the add customer. And down here. Just checking why.
It's the search customer screen. You've got the image in there at the moment.
Ah, yeah, sorry.
That's it.
Thanks, Charlie. Yeah, great. So now we have our different images over here. We can just, for the image property, we can also pick the fit one, so it makes it a little bit clearer. We do not really need the subtitle here. If you have additional information you want to show, you can just put another value in. Yeah, so we send to this. So if you play this, you see that there is no hand symbol over here, or that you do not really know that you hover over it. In my point of view, you have two options from here. So you can just pick the gallery. You can pick push or pop, whatever you prefer. So you get a little bit of an experience here that the user knows which icon he or she is at right now. So, but you can do a different thing as well. I will show you the exact same thing in just like a minute or so. So one more thing that we just need to do is, if you want to have the hand symbol over here, we can do it like this. We can insert a button. Just put it all across of this. Then get rid of the text. And also the color. So, and we will just do the same thing over here. So we don't need a pressed fill color. And also we do not want a hover fill color. So right now you can see that we have a hand symbol here so that the user knows that it is clickable kind of. So one more thing that you can do if you want to, you can just simply go to the border color property, just pick a color you want to have, or a color that matches your styling. And one more thing that it is missing is that we just put in the on select of the button. So navigate, we already defined the properties. So we have the screen already listed in the this item dot screen. And now when we click, we can see that we will be redirected to the different screens I already prepared. And also one more thing that is not really needed. So we make this a little bit bigger, and then the scroll bar will be invisible, but we can also toggle off the scroll bar here. So now it is clickable, like we saw. And in my point of view, like I said, for a mobile device, it works best if you have 4 buttons kind of. So going from this to that in, I don't know, 10 minutes or so. We will now have a look how it looks like on a big screen. So that's just an app I built kind of for myself. It's not really out there, but we can see it also works on a bigger screen. Same like before. When I make it smaller, you can see that it is also responsive, going back to 1. So the easiest thing in my point of view for the bigger screen, when we are looking at the rep count here, the only thing you would need to do is, instead of having a look at the breaking points, it's just like the very same. If you just pick the screen name, in this case home screen .size, and it will automatically do the rep count for you. So you do not really have to put in the breaking points, and if it is that big or that big, just put 4 or 3 or 2 or 1. Just the home screen .size or any screen name .size will do the trick for it. So yeah, that was my very quick demo. I will go back to my slides, and I will show you a slide that is kind of following me on every speaker gig I do, kind of. So just let me go there. In this case, it is German, but it's like, what does a user group call or a community call has in common with a fishing trip? So you can see a guy on the left that is out there enjoying the view, enjoying the weather, enjoying being there catching fish, and he caught 1 fish. And you can see this exact same guy on the right with basket full of fish, also being out there enjoying the weather and all the stuff like the guy on the left does. In my point of view, it's the same, at least for me. If you are on a community call or presenting in person somewhere, it's like, for me, it's the same. If I was able to help 1 person in this call, I'm also happy, like the guy on the right. But I would also be happy if some of you were able to take away a few things on this. And once again, thank you, Keith and Sarah, for inviting me. And I just want to, wait a minute, I'm just stopped the sharing. I will point your attention to one more thing. I put a link in a chat for those who do not know. I am a finalist in the ESPC Inspire Award, and also Sharon for the Best Mentor category. And I would appreciate if you have 2 minutes of your life, and if you enjoyed this call, or if you do not know me, just browse through my LinkedIn profile, and if you see anything that you like, just follow the link. Take these 2 minutes to vote for me and Sharon. We really would appreciate it. And yeah, if anybody is at ESPC in Dublin at the beginning of December, I will spend most of the time at the Mentoring Hub booth. Just come by, and I would love to chat with you. So hopefully meeting lots of you there in person.
Thanks, Markus. And yeah, do remember to vote, because people forget, don't they? And I heard another event, people kind of inbox randoms asking them for votes. So it's important that we do vote for the people that we're friends with and respect. So before we move on, Marcus, thank you so much for that. Are there any questions? I know the chat was going mostly with John Russell. But were there any questions that anybody wanted to ask at this point?
Keith was wondering why I did not build a Marmite app, I guess, so, and Charlie as well. So
Could you
a lot of
explain? I'm
Marmite
really
in the
confused.
chat.
yeah.
And Marcus, could you just show us a bit more about the lovely hoodie that you've got on tonight as well? Thank you.
Oh yeah, let's plug
Fantastic.
everything. The mentoring hub, we've got Marcus, Sharon, Keith, Sarah Guest's in here somewhere. We've got a lot of the gang. What was the other thing? Let's plug away. There was the East of England Summit call for speakers link as well.
In May,
So,
be there,
yeah.
folks. I'll be there. I'm looking forward to the workshops and the sessions. It's going to be amazing.
It's a great website, really good website. Whoever made that,
I was
amazing.
impressed.
Well done.
I hope they got paid well for that, actually, John. Whoever did that one.
Paid?
Yep.
Who's getting paid for this? What? I didn't know anything about paying people.
What have I done? All right, sorry.
We're bribing them with hoodies, Duncan.
Yes, yeah, bribing with hoodies. Yes, that is how we do it.
That'll work. Yeah. Good stuff.
While we're on Duncan, is there a link somewhere to register for the event, or is it just call for speakers at this point?
That's a great question, and the answer is no. There will be, and it's coming out shortly. We should be announcing our venue next, and then it will be registering for tickets. But yes, just call for speakers for the moment.
Awesome. Okay,
Fantastic.
Thank you. We'll look forward to that. And smoothly moving on to one of my favourite people, Heather Perriam. Is going to talk to us about accessibility, design for everybody. So yeah, I've been waiting to get you on here for ages, Heather. So excited for this one. Yeah, you should be able to present on your screen.
Perfect. So thank you, everybody. And I am really excited to be here. I am. And I love, we've got such a great group of people, and I see old friends and new friends. And yeah, this is just really, really exciting. John is already mentioning that I am in rural Devon. So thank you, John, for making sure everybody knows I'm in the middle of nowhere. Awesome. So hopefully now you see a very adorable puppy on your screen.
Very cute, yeah.
He is very cute. He's also extremely naughty, in case you were curious. So he gets into a lot of trouble. His full name is Mandor the Mandalorian, and the reason why he is starting out this presentation is because he wanted to inspire me by chomping up a 200-pound pair of glasses so that I would understand what it's like to consume content without my full vision. And so we would like to give a big shout out to Mandor for helping us get inspired for this presentation today. It was so we're trying out contacts now as a result of that, but yeah, so he's my cute squishy face. He's forgiven for all of his wrongs, and to be honest, this is one of my favorite topics, is how can we design applications that are accessible and inclusive? How can we give those experiences in Power Platform? I really, by the way, do not like going after Dan and Marcus, because those were really great, and so I felt a lot of pressure. But one of the things Marcus did was show the Power App that I very guiltily raised my hand for, because that definitely looks like my first go at it. And I was so proud of it too, right? I was so extremely proud of what they put together. And then now I'm I never want to see it again. I never want to be reminded that that's where we were. But it's the thing is even though it might fit into accessible, it might not be inclusive. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So for those of you who know me, don't know me, I will give you some fun Heather facts. It's not a Devon accent. I'm originally from the United States, West Coast. I moved here from Seattle. I've lived in Vegas. I've lived in Denver. I've lived in these big, huge American cities. And now I'm based in rural Devon. I work for Trustmark. I lead the Power Platform practice at Trustmark. I think I have the absolute most amazing team in the UK, and I'm not just saying that because some of them are on this call. I am a Power Platform enthusiast, evangelist, a citizen dev is where I started. I literally was the geeky girl making cool Excel spreadsheets because I'm lazy and I don't like paperwork. And then like I got shamed into this Power BI thing, right? And I was like, oh, this is actually really cool. I'll save the story for another day, but basically I BS my way into saying like, sure, I can build you a Power App. And now here we are after all of that, right? And so it's been a great experience for me. I've been really excited. I moved to England and people have shown me a lot of love. So I've been recognized a few times in the CRN Women in Diversity and Channel Awards, as well as the Women in Tech Awards for some of the work that we've done. And I'm an active member of our inclusion network at Trustmark because to Dan's earlier point, if you don't have DE&I in your team, you're missing out, right? And I have been in this space a very, very long time. One of the feelings that I'm extremely familiar with is being the only woman in the room and navigating challenges that come along that. So it's really important to me that we're thinking about inclusion in everything we do, and that includes in designing our apps. I am obviously a Star Wars fan, hence Mando the Mandalorian is my dog. I play Marvel Snap a lot, probably too much. And also I have ADHD. And that is important because that means I will yes, I will absolutely call you in 10 minutes. And between now and 10 minutes from now, I might forget. So it happens, right? And then we could be talking today. And if I start to trail off, I'm never going to be offended by a gentle reminder of like, hey, Heather, we all want to go to bed at some point tonight. So can we speed it up, right? You know, it is, again, part of my my reasons for advocating for accessibility and inclusion, because there are solutions out there that I cannot use because honestly with ADHD I just can't be bothered. It's too much, it's too overwhelming for me, and so I'm like, you know what, I'm just not going to do this for him, right? And I suffer those consequences. I have my LinkedIn link here. Please find me. I love it. It's where I hang out. It's how I know a lot of wonderful people on this call. So feel free to add me. Let's get into the content. Maybe if my mouse works. Hold on. There we go. Accessibility is for everyone. I pinched this from Microsoft, and we will be talking a little bit about the inclusive Microsoft design principles that exist. Over 1 billion people worldwide experience some form of disability, right? And so that's roughly 15% of the global population. But we still have many digital solutions that aren't designed with disability in mind. So one of the messages that I really hope people take away is accessibility. It's not just about compliance. It's not about making the app checker go away by, putting a space into the accessibility label so that we don't have to see the errors, right? It's actually about making our apps consumable and inclusive. When we make them inclusive, we can ensure that everyone, regardless of their ability, can use and benefit from the solutions that we're working so hard to make. And the reason why I like this chart is a couple of things. First of all, I'll start talking about accessibility and people will start talking about color contrast or making the font big, and maybe sometimes into screen readers and stuff like that. And they're really thinking about visual disabilities. But there's actually a lot of accessibility needs to come into play beyond just what we can see. In addition to that, and I won't read a chart because I think everybody here is pretty can see what's on the screen, but in addition to that, we have different types of disability. So you might have permanent disability, ADHD. I will always have ADHD. I love having ADHD, but it's not going to go away anytime soon, so that's there. We have temporary disabilities. So I think I told Keith this. The very first time I went to Scotland, I was so super excited and I broke my ankle and I couldn't walk for almost 2 years. And that was a temporary disability, right? And it's not Scotland's fault, to be clear, but it was everybody's like, you should go to Scotland. And I'm like, I tried that and it didn't go as well as I wanted it to. So, but that was a temporary disability, right? And it really changed my point of view on accessibility and what you could do. And while I'm now able to walk unassisted, it gave me a perspective that I cherish that I wouldn't have had. Then we have Situational disability. And I love that this had new parent with infant. Long-term parent with teenager is also a situational disability, by the way, because they're like hollering at you in the background or trying to get one over on you, like, hey, I'm going to go out with my friends, even though it's past my curfew, see you later, bye. And you're like, wait, hold on, so we get distracted. We see this a lot in healthcare, and we'll talk about that a little bit in a minute. So accessibility will actually ensure a better experience for everyone, not just the person with the disability. And I need you to keep that in mind. As we make things more accessible, we will find even if we don't have an impairment, we're going to enjoy our experience a little bit better. I'm going to move to the next slide. So Microsoft has given us stuff around accessibility, right? And it's called the Inclusive Microsoft Design. As I'm going through these, I will give you a list of resources at the end that will help you. So don't feel like you have to go look right now and don't Google it because you're bored with Heather. Just like, wait, I'll give you resources, I promise. So again, this is taking, it's not just like checking boxes off, right? This is seeing like, how can we design experiences that work for as many people as possible, regardless of their abilities, their language, their background, or their environment? 3 basics, right? First, recognize that somebody's excluded. Recognize that, like, hey, this is not going to work for this individual. Learn from that diversity. If you break your ankle and you're in a wheelchair, and you will now know every cafe around you that does not have acceptable access, right? And so we can learn from those experiences where we say, okay, this is a problem. And then solve for one person and it extends to many, right? So if we solve one particular issue, a lot of people are going to be able to benefit from that. I think it's really important. I'm going to take, I would not be doing what I would not be serving my mission well if I didn't say here, talk to people, ask people who have different abilities, like what makes this content accessible, what makes it more challenging for you. I have a very, very good friend of mine from America that lost his vision when he was 39 years old, and it was like an unexpected accident, medical incident, right? And I've had so many conversations with him about what makes this accessible, what do you appreciate, what do we think helps you, but actually you don't care about. That's an important thing to get from people who are utilizing your apps, right? So when we're designing and when we're thinking about how we're going to be inclusive, how do we do that? How do we capture that? My architects here are going to love this part, because one of my favorite ways to do these is by identifying personas, right? So I've got Sam. Sam, he's a data analyst, and he's looking at Power BI dashboards, and he's putting data into Power Apps, but he has a color vision deficiency. So he gets mild visual fatigue after long screen sessions, right? Some of his challenges is that it's hard to distinguish between similar colors in charts and forms. If there's small or low contrast text, it gives him eye strain. And then his focus indicators are hard to see. So it can make navigation really tiring for him. So then we take that and we say, what are our inclusive design needs? Well, let's give Sam some high color contrast and scalable text, some clear focus outlines and logical tab order, and we'll talk about this in a minute, and icons and labels that don't rely on color alone. That's really important for Sam, because sometimes he's just not going to be able to distinguish it, right? How do we do that in the Power Platform? Apply our accessible themes and our contrast checkers, add alt text for our icons and images, your accessibility label, we'll talk about that. Test with your screen readers, and then use patterns or data bars in your charts instead of color only. And so Sam's quote is, I don't need a special version. I just need a design that lets me see what everybody else sees. All he's asking for is to consume the same information, isn't he? We've got Claire. Claire and I, we get on. She has ADHD and she uses Power Apps every single day, right? And she gets like super overwhelmed if everything's cluttered or if it's inconsistent. She'll lose focus if there's too much. Oh, Claire, I so feel this, right? If I go in and you've got 87 fields for me to fill out, like it's not getting done, you guys. I'm gonna ask somebody to do it for me, or I'm just gonna leave it because it's too much, right? And then she gets confused by vague or technical error messages, stuff that doesn't make sense to her. She's just like, what am I gonna do with this? So we need to make sure she has clear, consistent layouts, short progressive forms that tell her what the next thing to do is, right? Friendly descriptive language, like she does not want you to show off her vocabulary, just tell her what you need to put in there. And then minimal on-screen information so that she doesn't get that cognitive overload, so she's not overwhelmed. And this is important. In Power Platform, we can use our group controls, conditional visibility, provide those clear error messages and progress feedback, and then limit alerts to essential notifications, right? So what she says is, when an app feels calm and predictable, I can focus on what matters and not how to use it. And this is really important. The very first web page I ever built, I am really aging myself here, but it was back in GeoCity days, you guys, and I put like every crazy thing you could do. I had mouse trails and spinning clocks and music that started up when you went to the page, because we all did that back then, right? And now I'm like, what a nightmare for somebody with ADHD. If I'm processing for work, make it clear, simple, so we can get on with it. Ronald's technical architect, but he's got limited hand mobility after a spinal injury. So he navigates around using the keyboard and voice commands, right? So if he has really small things that are tightly spaced, it's harder for him to select because he doesn't have the dexterity to get to where he wants. Drag and drop, just completely inaccessible to him. And then if the tab order isn't correct, it disrupts what he's doing. So he needs that full keyboard and voice capability, the large well-spaced interactive elements, clear and logical focus order, which we can do, right, by defining our tab order and test the keyboard only navigation. If you're doing drag only interactions, you're probably in a Power Page doing crazy stuff. So stop and let Ronald be able to access it, right? And then use Copilot Studio. I have a lot of people who really appreciate when I show them that they can use their voice in Copilot Studio to do stuff. And Ronald just says, I don't want to fight the design to do my job, right? I just want to be able to do what I need to do and not fight with trying to figure out the logistics of navigating through it. And then there's Marisol. Marisol, she's one of my favorite personas, right? Because she's a nurse and she's working these long shifts in an NHS hospital, and she speaks English. It's her second language, and she uses a shared Power App for patient observations. Her challenges is that she's working in noisy, high-pressure environments. She's often multitasking, and she's really tired, you guys. She's exhausted. Nurses work hard, right? If something's confusing or it's dense or it's not clear, it just slows her down. So when we're designing for her persona, we want to make sure that we're using plain, simple English and visual clues to help her out. She's exhausted. She doesn't want to read a bunch, right? Give her that strong contrast, short step forms, and then context-aware error messages so she understands exactly why something's not working. In the Power Platform, definitely give her icons and tooltips so that she understands what's going on. Write in that plain, friendly language. I hope you see this consistent theme, right? Like, be very plain and friendly when we're doing this. Give her some translation options with Copilot. And then, maybe she needs help with some reminders because she's exhausted and she's not going to remember everything that she needs to do today, right? After 12 hours on my feet, I need a system that helps me, not one that makes me think harder. I feel you, Marisol. So what about actually building them, right? The first bit is we need to use meaningful labels and headings for clear navigation. Every control, so your buttons, your inputs, your drop downs, they should have clear descriptive labels so that it's very obvious what they're there and what they're being used for. So an example of that, instead of a button labeled click here, use submit form or save changes, right? Then people know, they understand exactly what's going to happen when they select that. Ensure your proper tab order and keyboard navigation. I ignored this for probably the first year that I built Power Apps. I was like, this tab indexing is really confusing. And then I thought I figured it out, and I did not have it figured out. I'm not even going to tell you what I did, but it was really bad. And you would laugh at me. You'd be like, Heather, you really didn't get it at all. And I'll talk to you a little bit about it today so that if you're in the same spot I was, you kind of understand how tab index works going forward, right? And then just use the semantic headings, help people understand what each part of the app is. Like, hey, this is your personal information. This is going to be about your work or whatever you're doing, right, as you're going through it. Accessible controls. So your buttons, your checkboxes, your combo boxes, they should all have the clear labels on them. And we want to make sure that, like your checkboxes, make sure there's a text label with your checkboxes, not just a floaty box out there, so that a screen reader can pick it up and say, hey, this is what you need to be doing there. And then we want to avoid complex UI elements that hinder your screen reader compatibility. I will give you guys a link in the session so that you can look at a screen reader and use it with your apps and just see how your apps work within. You might be surprised. I know I was the first time I did it, because it is interesting what it picks up, what it doesn't pick up. It's really important that we make sure that a screen reader is going to go through our elements the way we want them to. And if we're truly building an accessible solution, it's something that we're doing our due diligence if we go through it. So by following these simple guidelines, you can see that the app, it's going to address people that have disabilities or challenges with using the content, but it's actually going to make it more friendly for everybody because your app's clear, it's easy to read, you know exactly what you're doing. And this is like, I'll probably say this more than once, but accessibility needs to be like at the core of your design. It's not an afterthought. You shouldn't be going back. Your app checker comes up and says, I have 67 accessibility issues, and then fix them then. It should be at the core of your design. We should be thinking about it from the very, very beginning. It'll also save you a lot of work, and it'll make it a lot easier. So let's go back to Ronald. So Ronald, he has that dexterity issue, right? And so it's just really hard for him. He'd rather not use the mouse. He'd rather navigate through the keyboard. He's got some additional software that'll help him navigate with his voice as well. But he doesn't want to have to take a mouse and move around the app to get things done. So how can we help Ronald out? Let's talk about your accepts focus and tab index. The difference between these two is really easy. Accept focus, modern controls. Tab index, classic controls. So that's how you can distinguish between which one you need, but they have the same principles, right? And I loved this chart because it's actually, when I started out, like I said, I was really embarrassing. I had tab indexes that, I don't know, I just kept thinking like, oh, so I want that one to go there second, so I'll put a 2 there, and I want that one to go there third, and I was like trying to label them in order because I didn't get it, right? It's actually pretty simple. Most of the time, we're just going to sit there, we're going to say, we're going to give it a 0, or we're going to give it a -1. And just to say, this participates in him moving around with his keyboard, or it does not. Right? So we don't want to go through, if you're navigating with arrow keys, my gamers know this, if you're navigating with your arrow keys, you want it to go where you expect it to go, and you don't want it to go to an unexpected place. And that's where our tab controls can help. How do you test this? Use your keyboard. Navigate through your app with a keyboard. If you haven't done that, I promise you'll learn a lot if you go through and start to see like, okay, is this navigable? Is it going where I think it should go? If it's not, if it's going out of order, you can change that tab index and help it go with the flow that you want it to be in. Controls that have a visible property of false, or if they're disabled, if their display mode is disabled, they're not going to be included in keyboard navigation. And that's really important to remember. So if we have hidden fields and stuff like that, they'll if we do that properly, then they'll be immune from the navigation, so we don't have to worry about getting stuck on those controls. Let's go back to Sam, my poor buddy Sam, because he has that color deficiency, and he gets that visual fatigue, right, as he's looking at stuff. We have really good news for Sam. Here's what's exciting for him is, so the theming in Power Apps by default, all those default themes are they're going to be accessible. That's built into the themes that are already there. So I found this really interesting. I did go and look this up. So nearly 1 in 12 men and 1 in 200 women have some form of color blindness. And 1 in 12 men, I know a lot more than 12 men. We have more than 12 men on the call. And so there's somebody on this call, most likely, who has difficulty in seeing colors or sees colors differently than the rest of us do, right? So without proper contrast and color usage, we could actually be having key information in our solutions that are not accessible to our users. There's WCAG, which is called the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, and they have ratio requirements for contrast. So 4.5 to 1 for normal text, 3.1 for UI elements and graphics. You're going like, that's great, Heather. How do I know? How do I know what my contrast is? I'm going to give you a link to a tool. And your tool is going to be able to show you what your contrast looks like. So I have to use it. I still can't put two colors together and say, oh, that looks like it works to me. Like, I think it's better to actually check that contrast out. Use your built-in themes because you'll get that consistent and readable color palette. And we know it's accessible, right? And then they adjust automatically if somebody is viewing in a high contrast mode. Those themes will automatically adjust for them. And then here's a big one. I actually, so I did this deck last year and I left it out. And then I've seen some examples that I think it's really important. You've got to use more than color to tell somebody what to do, right? So if your only indicator is a color, you're leaving people out. They're not going to be able to see that. If you think about 300 million people in the world that have some sort of color blindness, and then you're saying, you know, I'm going to just let them know what to do because I'll put this green and I'll put this red, and then they'll know that that's go and that's stop. Right. Unless they have green, red color blindness, and then they're not going to understand which way they're supposed to go with that. I will say too, anybody who's had like your mobile device and you accidentally dim your screen and turn the light all the way down, or you turn the brightness all the way up. We've all been in that situation where it's like, wait, what's going on with my phone? It's broken. It impacts the way people are going to see colors too, right? So if we don't have that contrast there and they're in a low light condition, or maybe really bright sunlight, they're going to struggle to see what's going on. So we've got to have something other than color that navigates through. Now, color is an okay enhancement. It's okay to have to have both, but we've got to have some other indicator. So always pair your color with your text and icons for important messages. And then if you just want to put a big red for an error, and I've seen this so many times, they'll just put a big red thing in like a drop down or something like that. Now it's red. Now you know you messed up. You could put an icon and you could put text in there that says, hey, this is empty, or you need to select one, something like that. And then with like a status indicator, instead of just a color, oh, it's green, amber, red, right? Sorry if I traumatized anybody with that example, green, amber, red. But anyway, if it's green, amber, red, let's put an icon with it, and even some text that just says like, hey, this is going well, this needs some help, or we're in bad trouble. So by using that proper contrast and avoiding that color reliance, we're going to ensure that our apps are usable for all our users, even those with visual impairments. So it's a really small step that makes a big impact. Even though it doesn't feel like it sometimes, it really does. Accessible label, right? So those hang out in there. This is what, when we're new, this causes a lot of our accessibility errors in our checkers, doesn't it? And we see it light up. And if you're not guilty of that, I'll give you a special prize worth like pennies. But it's like, it's huge, right? Because and honestly, sometimes I was just, when I first started out, I was so thrilled that I just got a button to work properly that I was like, I'll worry about that stuff later. Who knows, And so I was just so proud of the code. I didn't want to look at it. But it's really important. Your screen readers, they rely on that, right? They need that label to tell the person what's going on and to tell them what's going through. So particularly people with lower vision, it's a different world because they're seeing some of it, right? Or they're seeing like, trying to get the context here, and they need that screen reader to fill in the blanks for them to say, like, actually, this is what this bit does, this is what that bit does. When you're using things, so one of the things to keep in mind, so let's say like you're using an image, an icon, a shape, and you're like, oh gosh, Heather said it's important to also like label this with text and not just rely on a visible indicator. Then you're going to want to leave your accessible label blank on the icon, or else the screen reader is going to go start, 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 and say start 3 times, right? Because it's reading your text, it's reading your whatever else you have out there in there. But if it's an element that's sitting on its own, that we definitely want the user to be able to identify, your accessible label is very important so that the screen reader can see it. And then these are just some tips. You're welcome to screenshot this, but it'll also be in the Microsoft documentation that I'm going to be sending links to. This is just some tips on how you can hide your content from sighted users and show it to screen reader users and vice versa, because there may be times where you're like, a screen reader person's going to need to be able to see this, but I don't really need it for the general audience. And so this is just some guidelines and some suggestions, Microsoft endorsed suggestions on how to do this, right? So sometimes you might want, like, an example that I would use in this is like, say you're showing a chart, right? So somebody's not using a screen reader, we're probably safe to assume they can see the chart and they can read the chart. So they probably don't need the description of the visuals or anything else to indicate what's going on in the chart, whereas somebody reading using a screen reader would probably appreciate to have that interpreted for them. So that's an example of where you might want to do it. And then again, the previous example of like, if you've got a shape and then you've got a label next to it to describe it, you can alternate between those two and just to hide one of them so your screen reader guy doesn't get annoyed with hearing the same thing 1,000 times. If you use buttons creatively, which I think a lot of us do, they can still use their keyboard to get to that button, even if you use one of these techniques, right? So you'll want to disable it if you don't, or take out the on start or something if you don't want them to be able to do anything with that button, just to let you know. And also, of course, you can set your tab index to -1 and it won't go there at all when they're navigating with a keyboard. How can we test it? I love testing, right? Testing's our favorite bit. So we can do all these things and then you know, like Heather said it would work, so I'm just gonna go with it. I love if you trust me, thank you so much, but please test it to make sure it does what we want it to do. Power Apps App Checker, even though we have a love-hate relationship, it definitely is so important. You know, for me, it's something that it's an expectation that I have from my development team. Like, we always need to run it and it always needs to be clear. And if it's not, we need to understand why, right? And we need to understand what's going on. Test with your screen readers. Like I said, I'll give you a pretty link to one so that you have a screen reader to test with. Manually test it. Navigate with a keyboard. I promise you'll get so much more empathy if you navigate with a keyboard and you understand how people are using your app if they can't use a mouse. It's really, really important. I'm going to send you a link to a browser contrast checker that you can use. It's not my favorite one because sometimes it gets mad at iframes and so it doesn't do Power Apps as well as I want it to do. But it's a good start. At least you can start checking some things. And then the bottom one is the most important, and you always have to get your user feedback. You cannot go to somebody who says, I don't find your content accessible and I'm not able to consume it, and say, well, I followed all the principles, so I think you're wrong, right? You need to be able to take that feedback and say, no matter what I thought I did correctly, we still have a gap here, and I need to address that for this person. And these are the resources that I'll send to you, but I really do want to emphasize when you're thinking about accessibility, it's not about the checklist. It's not about, oh, I'm going to put these cool features in, or I'm going to give myself the ability, oh, yes, I'm very accessible. I'm going to make everything accessible. It's really about taking down those barriers, right? So that everybody can participate and they can consume your content. You've put a lot of work into this application, and your clients may have paid you a lot of money if you're working for a partner or something like that. We need to give them the most out of it. Your adoption will increase. People are more likely to use it. They're going to appreciate technology that makes their job easier for them and that they feel is designed for them. I will be happy to open it up for questions. If we're not connected on LinkedIn, let's be friends. I love being friends with everybody. I will also give you my LinkedIn link. But I would love if anybody had any questions, comments, any ways that you relate to find content accessible, happy to take it in.
I love that bit about the personas, actually, and it's quite reassuring. I'm the sort of person, and if Franco's still online, he can attest to this, that if I lose it with something I can't use, the phone is close to being thrown on the floor. Or like, I get to that point. I think, why can't I do it? Why can't I do it? I'm a grown up. And and that whatever it is, I'm not diagnosed as ADHD. But there's those kind of things that I relate to, and it's nice to know that there are people out there thinking about it, because you just think it makes you feel stupid. So
yeah. You did say something that I think is important, because I've had other people like, oh, I don't have a diagnosis. It doesn't matter. You don't have to have a diagnosis to say, like, this frustrates me. This makes it more difficult for me, right? Yeah. So, agree with that. Oh, thanks, Franco. Keith.
Yeah, I'll just second that from Sarah, and that's why we work so well, because I'm up in Scotland and she's in England, and she can't throw a phone at me because we're too far away. It works out great. Yeah, it works great. But joking aside, I do sympathize, and I actually, even as a technical person by background, I get the same frustrations that Sarah mentioned there, where this should be simple. And sometimes I'll even go from the angle of, I've got a lot of years, as Sarah would say, I've been about a bit in tech and pro dev for a long time. Why am I struggling with Teams this way, or some other piece of software? Why is this, right?
Yes. It's actually, so my husband is also neurodivergent, and he's a different neurospicy than I am, right? And he had they rolled out an update to Teams, and anyway, it moved his buttons around and it made it smaller, and that literally ruined his entire day, because he came to work and started his day and he was like, nothing is correct, nothing is where it needs to be, and it was so good not good for him, sad face. I'm like, I'm so glad he was stressed out and miserable. But like what I got from that is I could see how utterly distressing that is to some people, to have an unexpected change to their technology. And it was literally like, he was like, I can't even get on a call. Like everything's broken, everything's wrong, I can't do it. And it was just really eye-opening. So yeah, I love that you guys had good comments. I always joke that when we talk in America, like the audience always takes it like as a personal challenge to grill you and ask you very difficult questions to see if you really know your stuff. And so I love talking in the UK, because people are like, oh no, great job, I really liked it. And I'm like, oh, that's so nice. They asked me nothing hard.
It's like you're throwing a challenge down there, Heather, by saying that.
No, I mean, no.
Not from me. You're the expert, not from me.
No. So no, thank you guys. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know it's not the most exciting subject, and particularly when we're all like winding down and want to get our food, but I think it's really important.
I think it's important. And I think I as somebody who's not technical, I'm not hands-on, I have no control over what these apps look like, and I see sessions about guidelines and I find those interesting, and it's useful because there's some boxes you can tick to make sure you're doing things right. But then to kind of take it that step further into the kind of human nature side, that's something that fascinates me personally anyway. But it's just a bit different. It's a different topic, and the same with Dan's actually today. It's there's human-centric topics I really enjoy. So thank you both.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's that diversity in sessions we've got. It's not just 3 Power Apps technical sessions. It's across the board. And that's why our friends at the other user group, the Power Platform UX UI Allies group, who also had their event today as well. We kind of coincided on the same day. Those are really great, important topics, as you say, people who need that good user experience, regardless of what your abilities are. So no, super important. Fantastic. Well, if anyone's got any questions, just reach out to Heather, Dan, or Markus. Lovely bunch of people. We're all good friends, and I know they just love to help others. So please do connect with them on LinkedIn and reach out.